Constitution Committee table report at Fono Ekipule, and Chief Justice Greg Coxhead and judges of the Niue High Court in Niue this week. Good evening and welcome to our news bulletin. I'm Mersa Takala. Leading our news tonight, the Niue Assembly's Constitution Review Committee tabled a report in yesterday's sitting of the House after the invitation for public submissions on the proposed changes to the Constitution closed on Thursday last week. Here's more with Esther Pavihi.
The chairperson of the Constitution Review Committee, Honourable Billy Talangi, tabled the report from the CRC after the call for public submissions on the proposed amendments to the Constitution closed on Thursday last week. Honourable Billy Talangi explained that the Constitution Review Committee were tasked by the Whanau Gepule last year when Premier Dalton Tangilangi presented a motion with 9 proposed amendments to the Constitution. The committee met and decided to focus on 4 out of the 9 proposed amendments, namely the change to the title from Premier to Prime Minister. The second amendment is to increase the members of Cabinet from 4 to 6. The third proposal is to increase the term of the Assembly from 3 years to 4 years, and the fourth proposed amendment is in reference to the Audit Office of New Zealand. Honourable Billy Talangi thanked the members of the public who took time to send through their submissions. Meanwhile, the Deputy Chair of the committee, Sinahemana Hekau, explained and assured the public that the process of public consultations on the proposed amendments to the Constitution will be robust and extensive to ensure the interests of the people are well represented in the final outcome. She explains here the responses from the call for public submissions.
A survey on the types of persons who responded showed that 82% were female, 56% were persons from the working age group, 28% were seniors, and 16% were youth. Those who responded raised many questions around the review and why there has not been any public consultations. Please be assured the first call was preliminary, that the CRC will commence public consultations soon after the first reading of any proposed Constitution amendment bills. The goal is to enable productive public consultations on the basis of Constitution amendment bills. The opposed views to this work are that too much time and resources has been lost with no results, versus why is this work too hurried? We have conveyed the data above. Please think on it. Other views against the present work are on the idea of the review itself. Whether good or bad, the Constitution should not be changed at all. Next is the objection against procedure. There is a fear that there hasn't been enough time talking with the people. Let us reassure you, members of the public, that we will have plenty of time and opportunity for consultation. We express our gratitude to members of the public who responded to our call, and we take note of your reasons to each amendment and appreciate your thoughtfulness. We look forward to meeting and speaking with many of you over the next few weeks and months. We are now organizing matters internally before we do further work externally.
Members of the Whanau Gepule spoke briefly on the report, most of whom spoke of the need for more information to go out to the public and the timing of the referendum. Speaker of the Whanau Gepule, Hima Douglas, explained that the procedure for the amendment of any proposed amendments to the Constitution differs from the tabling of other bills proposed or presented before the House. He explained that after the second reading of the proposed amendments to the Constitution, it will take 13 weeks before the bills are returned to the Whanau Gepule for the third and final reading. The Constitution Review Committee will be undertaking public consultations on the proposed amendments over the coming months. Esther Pavihi for BCN News.
Other matters discussed at the Niue Assembly meeting yesterday included the tabling of reports and several questions from members. Premier Dalton Tangilangi tabled for the information of the House the Gambling Regulation 2024 pursuant to the Niue Act 1996, Section 176A.
Speaker Hima Douglas informed the Whanau Gepule that the Speaker of the New Zealand Parliament, Honourable Jerry Brownlee, will be visiting Niue next month and will have a session with the members of the Whanau Gepule. Honourable Jerry Brownlee will be accompanied by 4 other members of the New Zealand Parliament visiting Niue next month. The chairperson of the Committee on Infrastructure and Central Agencies, Mani Whakausimanawa, also tabled the report from the committee, the contents of which will be discussed in future meetings. Meanwhile, the Minister of Health, Honourable Sonia Talangi, also tabled the annual report from the Health Department for the year 2022 to 2023. The report was referred to the Committee on Social Services of the Whanokepule. Some of the questions heard in the whānau include the question to the Minister of Infrastructure from Common Role member Mani Whakausimanawa on the update of the purpose-built barge intended to provide a better method of handling cargo containers. Minister Crossley Tatui responded, saying that the purpose-built barge was found not to be suitable for the conditions of the Niue seas and the reef, and is deemed not suitable for the use to carry cargo containers. BCN News covered the story on the new barge called Toa Hitahi in July last year. The barge was built by a Kiwi company based in Nandi, Fiji, costing the government around $850,000. In response to a supplementary question from Whakausimanawa, Minister Tatui said that the government is considering selling the purpose-built barge to recover costs. Other questions included the plans for the 50th anniversary celebrations, where Common Role member Billy Talangi asked the minister responsible for the 50th anniversary celebrations, Minister Sonia Talangi, if there is a budget allocated for the many events and activities, but Minister Talangi did not answer the question about a budget allocation for the activities and events scheduled for the 50th anniversary celebrations this year. Esther Pavihi for BCN News.
All 4 judges of the Niue High Court from New Zealand were on the island this week for the sitting of the Court of Appeal, including Chief Justice Greg Coxhead, Judge Wilson Isaac, Zara Reeves, and Armstrong. Today was the final day of the Niue High Court and Court of Appeal sittings on Land Division. Here's more on this story.
It is not often that all 4 judges of the Niue High Court based in New Zealand come to Niue, but last week they all arrived on the island. Part of their schedule included the swearing in of 2 justices of the peace and also to preside over the Court of Appeal and hearing 10 cases before the Court of Appeal. Chief Justice of the Niue High Court, Craig Coxhead, explained the reasons why the Niue Court of Appeal only sits once every 3 or 4 years.
Historically, the Court of Appeal has sat here every 3 to 4 years, and the reason for that is, one's financial, really. To justify 4 judges coming here, we really do need to have quite a few cases. And so for this sitting, we had 10 cases originally set down, and that 10 cases, that is a heavy workload, but it is a workload that, well, like I say, justifies bringing 4 judges from New Zealand to here.
Justice Coxhead explains that they have held sittings of the Appeals Court in New Zealand before, where both parties attend, but says that it is quite seldom. Chief Justice Coxhead also explained some of the requirements for the public to note when putting an application before the Court of Appeal.
One thing I think is important for people to understand is that when you do come to the Court of Appeal, it's not an opportunity just to rerun your case. It's your opportunity to say the judge in the High Court did not come to the right decision because they got something on the law wrong or they got some of the facts wrong. But yeah, it isn't a time just to say, I want another go because I'm not happy with the decision. This actually should be clear grounds as to why you want to appeal. And I remind my fellow judges that sometimes when we've had tense cases, judges will say, well, if you're not happy, appeal. But that's not actually good advice. They should say only appeal if you have good reason to appeal. And good reason to appeal are things like the judge got the law wrong or the judge got the facts wrong.
He advises members of the public to seek advice if you are thinking of an appeal.
If you're thinking of an appeal, you should seek advice for that. In terms of being representing or having representation, certainly lawyers and people who know about the system are of assistance, but it's not a prohibiting factor to appearing in the Court of Appeal. And in fact, not only in the Court of Appeal, but in the High Court as well, we have a lot of people who self-represent. They represent themselves, and they're probably more comfortable at the High Court level because it is the opportunity to tell their version, to tell their history when they're talking about their lands, or to tell their side of the story. It does get a bit more complex and a bit more, there's more legalese and legal jargon that goes on at the Court of Appeal level. So if you are able to get assistance, and I know it is not easy here, then that will help you.
The Niue High Court that took place at the Niue Golf and Sports Club concluded today. Meanwhile, the cases before the Court of Appeal concluded yesterday. Esther Pavihi for BCN News.
Minister of Health and Social Services Honourable Sonia Talangi announced at the Fono Ekepule yesterday the new Director of Health. She is Miss Minerva Ekimau from New Zealand, originally from Alofi. Minister Talangi said that they are looking forward to the arrival of the new director and the work that she will be undertaking to help improve the services and performance of the health department, including the new health practitioners law.
I wish to advise the public that we are working very hard to support Niue Fall Hospital, as well as the other departments within the Ministry of Social Services, to reach their full potential and to become the best that they can be, not only for the officials as workers, but for the people of Niue. This includes the implementation of a performance improvement framework, work that we shall be conducting with the Niue Public Service Commission, as well as the implementation of the Health Practitioners Act, the work that shall be prioritised for the new Director of Health, Mrs. Minerva Ekimau, once she arrives on island.
BCN News understands that the new Chief Medical Officer has also arrived and is working at the Niue 4O Hospital. He is Dr. Salesi Akoola. Minister Talangi also tabled the Health Department's Annual Report 2022-2023 at the Fono Ekepule yesterday. It is not often that judges of the High Court give interviews, so it was a privilege for BCN News to sit down and speak with the Chief Justice, Greg Coxhead, to talk about his role.
Justice Coxhead is originally from Tokoroa and studied law at the University of Waikato. He was appointed to the Maori Land Court and Niue Court in 2008, and in 2016 he was appointed as the Chief Justice of Niue. He speaks here about some of the similarities of the Maori Court and the Niue High Court.
Well, the main similarity, I think, is that we deal a lot with custom in the Māori context, and here we also deal a lot with custom. Those are the big, and we deal a lot with land. Historically, the relationship between Niue and the Māori Land Court, I think, came about because so much of our work is actually land. And in the recent figures that I was looking at, it's something close to 78% of the applications that the court receives and deals with are land matters. So it makes sense, I think, to have judges who deal with land, obviously in a different context, but who deal with land. There are some similarities in, we have trustees, here we have Leviki, we have whānau trust, which are where no individual owns the land. It is put in so that there is communal, collective ownership, and over here there's mangafoa. I would say though that while there are similarities, there is a different context, and we always remind ourselves to not try and compare it or say, oh, this is just like what we do at home, because it's Niue, and there's Niue custom, and over here there's Māori custom. So, like I say, there are parallels, but be careful in drawing those parallels.
In regards to adjournment, Coxhead advises members of the public to be prepared and notify your local judiciary if there are any changes to your application so as to avoid adjournment. Some of the common concerns on the island is the accessibility to legal advisors and lawyers in Niue. Coxhead encourages locals to take up the learning opportunity at USP.
In another role that I have, I'm also on the Pacific Justice Sector Program, which is a program that's set up, receives funding from Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade from New Zealand, and is specially set up to assist with education for the judiciaries, the registries, the courts in the Pacific. And so what we've been doing is trying to encourage people to enrol in the University of South Pacific. There's a certificate course. There's also a diploma course. A number of our justices of the peace and land commissioners have completed that course, but we've now got the permission to actually open that up to anyone in Niue who's wanting to put their hand up and enrol in the course.
Chief Justice Craig Coxhead says that judges as himself are open to do training and to speak at different gatherings. Although they cannot give legal advice, they can give legal commentary.
I think the process is really important for any significant changes like that. In terms of what the changes are, I probably can't comment on that. I don't know if they've got any changes in terms of the judiciary. Those might not be in there yet. But like our legislation and our constitutions, there is a time for reviewing of them, and I think the thing that people of Niue can get some confidence in is that the process for this review, from what I've heard, sounds very robust.
Before leaving tomorrow, Judge Coxhead had this to say about this year being Niue's Golden Jubilee, celebrating 50 years of self-government.
Just that I think Niue should be proud of what they have done in those 50 years and where they are at as an independent country, as an independent sovereign state. One thing that we are always very aware of is that as judges from New Zealand, we are not Niuean, and we have to be mindful of that. The ideal, I think, would be, before we get to 100 years, that Niue doesn't have Māori judges coming from the Māori Land Court, but Niue has Niuean judges. Currently we have an excellent local judiciary of land commissioners and justices of the peace, and they are all from here. They have the skills, they have the ability, they've been doing a great job. The next step, I think, is that one day I'm made redundant. I don't know how long that'll be, because we've had this talk about lawyers in terms of being here in Niue and legal assistance, but that certainly must be something that is a long-term goal, in that not only are you a independent sovereign state, but you have your own independent judiciary. It may be that, like a lot of the other Pacific countries, there's the Court of Appeal who you bring in judges from around the Pacific as well. But that's what I'd like to see in some time.
Sarai Mangawa for BCN News.
A new swearing-in ceremony for the two new Justice of the Peace for Niue was held last Saturday. The two new JPs sworn in were Anthea Hekau Harding and Hetutu Tama Spido Hetutu. Invited guests gathered at the Environment Department conference room to witness this special occasion.
The ceremony was conducted by Niue's Secretary of Justice Darren Tohovaka. He was able to welcome Chief Justice of the High Court of Niue, Craig Coxhead, and his delegation to the island, who have finally returned to Niue since their last visit 5 years ago in 2019. In his opening remarks, Coxhead acknowledged Selina Sekia for her 20 years of service as a registrar of the High Court of Niue. Chief Justice Coxhead led the official swearing-in of the ceremony, where Mrs. Harding and Mr. Hetutu both swore their oaths for their new role as JP. In an interview with BCN News this week, Chief Justice Craig Coxhead explains the important role of the Justice of the Peace.
Justices of the peace, they always have to sit at least two of them together. And what we find here is most of the commissioners will do land matters, and then we have justices of the peace who do criminal and civil matters, and they also sit with the commissioner as well, because there's some sentencings which the law requires that it be a commissioner and two justices of the peace. So there's those legal requirements.
Coxhead also highlighted the significant role of land commissioners here in Niue. He stated that both justices of the peace and land commissioners need similar skills.
So under the Niue Constitution, we can have commissioners, and we have a number of them, and commissioners' powers are very similar to that of a High Court judge. Not totally, but they're very similar. And commissioners can and do in some instances sit on their own. so they can make. The practice here, though, is that, especially in land matters, we've always had up to 5 commissioners sit on matters, and that's because sometimes there's a requirement. While I say that they can sit as one, there's a requirement in the Act which says that they need to sit on a panel as 5.
Minister for Justice, Lands and Court Honourable Sonia Talangi, who was present, also shared words of gratitude and congratulations to the 2 new JPs. Chairperson of the Niue Justice, Desmond Hipa, also shared thoughts of acknowledgement to past JPs and Land Court Commissioners for their years of service to the Justice, Lands and Court. The ceremony was opened and closed with a prayer by Ekalesia Niue President Reverend Nevi Salatielu. Sarai Mangawa for BCN News.
The blasting took place at areas including the rubbish dump at Tafalalo, the fish factory at Amanao, and at Lower Huihui Road. Members of the public, especially parents and their children, were urged to stay clear of these areas before the blast took place. 2 New Zealand police specialists arrived on the island 2 weeks ago to conduct training sessions with the Niue Police Department on core basic policing skills. This is part of an operational policing program that oversees the realm countries of New Zealand, including Niue. Here's more on this story.
Yesterday afternoon, the New Zealand Police Specialists and Niue Police held training sessions incorporating crime scenes, scenarios such as robbery and domestic violence at scenic Matavai Resort. BCN News spoke with Chief of Police Tim Wilson yesterday afternoon, who shared more about the purpose of the training.
We have right now the New Zealand Police International Services Group and the Pacific Island Police Prevention Program here with us to do some training. This is training that we've worked on with the New Zealand Police for several years to develop. Specifically for realm countries within the New Zealand realm, but it's been extended beyond that to give police officers and constables core basic policing skills, the basic training that you would get on how to process scenes, how to take reports, statements, and just some of the basic policing skills that are good for our new constable that just started 2 months ago, but also good for our other staff as a refresher.
New Zealand Police of the Pacific Island Prevention Policing Program, Inspector Brendan Keenan, is no new face to the island. He previously visited Niue last year to commence the program and has returned to conduct his training with fellow colleague Terry Laws.
So we tailor it for each country. So this is the 3rd country that we've delivered this core training. So we've done Kiribati, Samoa and now Niue. So we tailor it towards each needs of different organisations. So Samoa, for example, is looking more at their leaderships, their sergeants, whereas Niue we've been focusing across the board. It's been from first recruits, like we've had Frank here recently recruited, right through to sergeants as well. So, and it's hitting the mark where they need it most. But we're coming under the prevention operating program, so a big part of that has been looking at the drivers of demand for a particular country, like Niue. And most of the Pacific Islands are similar, so you've got youth, roads, family harm, you've also got emerging issues, you've got maritime, you've got roads. So we're looking at those type of drivers and then putting interventions in place to reduce the demand on the police. It's also about having a different mindset, having a mindset around prevention, having prevention first and not being so much reactive. And finally, it's about partners. So a big thing with partners is where police are wanting to work constantly with our partners, because no one organisation can take care of all the issues within a country, and so we need to work together.
Fresh out of high school and the youngest new recruit to Niue Police, Frank Valiana, shared his experience with this training.
I've really enjoyed it, and just truly thankful to our Chief Police and our Inspector for also holding this training as well for the past 2 weeks, and also very grateful for the Inspector and Senior Sergeant Terry, and also Inspector Brendan, who came from New Zealand, just to show us the 6 core policing skills and explain to us on how a good cop will use these skills in order to, carry out the activities and the roles as a police officer in Niue.
Today was the final day for training. A short awarding ceremony recognizing the completion of the training was held for the Niue police officers, presented by New Zealand High Commissioner to Niue, Mark Gibb. Sarai Mangawa for BCN News.
The Niue Meteorological Services celebrated World Meteorological Day for this year with Niue primary school students yesterday. Niue Met says it is important to increase awareness and education, especially amongst our children, on the impacts of climate change and the significant role meteorology plays in addressing the issue, especially in Niue. World Meteorological Day is commemorated each year on the 23rd March, marking the day when the World Meteorological Organization was established in 1950. The theme for this year is at the front line of climate change. Niue Met Service chose to celebrate World Meteorological Day a few days earlier than expected due to the 23rd March falling on the weekend. Senior Met Officer Robert Tongiamana says that they were happy to host the primary school children for this year's World Meteorological Day. He iterated the importance of educating our children on the impacts of climate change. Yesterday morning, the Niue Met team, together with meteorological officers from Australia and the Red Cross, were at the primary school. Children from ECE and Year 1s to 4 went on a field trip led by the Met team. They visited the Vaiupapahi farm, the climate weather station at Liku, Sir Robert's Wharf, and the Meteorological Services Office. The Secretariat Office of the Niue Public Service Commission held a workshop last Thursday, bringing together administrative managers and officers from various departments to discuss crucial administrative processes, including employee leaves and records, recruitment procedures, and performance appraisals. A highlight was the briefing provided by the Secretariat Office on the introduction of the new Human Resource Information System, Lenteria, as part of the ongoing digital transformation initiative. Lenteria is poised to transform HR management by automating leave records and updates. Throughout the workshop, attendees actively engaged in discussions, raising concerns and addressing issues relevant to their roles. The China First Railway Group road contractors have been working from roads on the top from Tamakotonga to the airport with double-layer sealing this week. The contractors have advised the roads will be temporarily closed in each section they work on. Traffic control will also be in place. All road users are asked to slow down and use alternative routes or avoid this area. For any queries or concerns, you can contact their office on phone numbers 4297 or 4644. The Tō Niue Ma'anoiha, or the Niue Warriors for the Future group, spent day 3 out at the Rowendale School. According to their Facebook post, they were greeted by the whole school with a warm welcome. The group thanked Principal Vasau and their staff for the hospitality and generous donation. Approximately $3,000 was raised from the event. Earlier in the week, the group also visited Motat and the Stardom Observatory. The students have also been excited with all their adventures and learnings while in New Zealand for their cultural exchange program. The Alofi gym run by Ellen Tano has been provided with new weightlifting equipment. Tano says the equipment was donated by the International Weightlifting Federation last year. Gym owner Alan Tano is grateful for the new additions of gym equipments. He said the equipment they've had is quite old, dating right back to the 2003 Junior Weightlifting Championship that was hosted by Niue.
Yes, the new equipment was here last year, donated by IWF, International Weightlifting Federation, by Paul Koffa of Oceania Weightlifting Federation. So we just upgrade the gym with rubber tiles, and still more weights. The space is small, so we couldn't put up all the weights. But this other side here, we've been training before, the weights before.
The gym has also upgraded its floors with rubber tiles, and he is encouraging everyone, including tourists, to make use of the gym as it is free of charge. Tano says they are also in the process of recruiting new lifters.
Open invitation, there's no fee over here. It's open 24 hours. And I advise those training just look after the place, and because it's not locked. Anybody can come, even tourists, they come here and train. And they donate, but the box is not there anymore. I haven't made a new one. So it's open to, we are recruiting new lifters.
Meanwhile, Tano has confirmed Niue will be hosting the 2024 Oceania Championship in December this year.
This year in December 11 to the 12th, Oceania Powerlifting Federation has given us the rights to host the 2024 Oceania Championship. And that will include Australia and New Zealand. World Powerlifting, because over this region now there's two powerlifting. The IBF, the International Powerlifting Federation, that's based in Germany. We moved out of that one. And Australia, New Zealand, some of the Pacific Island, and China started the World Power.
The annual Ahome of the Ecclesia Niue took place last Saturday at the Millennium Hall in central Alofi. The day brought together all the Ecclesia congregation of each village to a festival of hymns and fellowship, and ending the day with a traditional tasika.
President of Ekalesia Niue, Reverend Nevi Salatielu, conducted the program of the day. According to Treasurer of the Church, Kulupa Ikihele, a total of $46,093.30 was raised on the day for the pastor's fortnightly stipend. The Ahome celebrations on Saturday were attended by 12 village Ekalesia. The village of Vaya did not attend. The Ahome is one of two main fundraising events on the Ekalesia annual calendar, where the village Ekalesia and donations are raised for the work of the church. Sarai Mangawa for BCN News.
And finally, it was a sea of bright yellow last Friday as women from the Rock came together to celebrate International Women's Day at the Scenic Matavai Resort. The event, hosted by the Niue Chamber of Commerce, is now in its 6th year running with this year's theme on Inspire Inclusion. NCOC CEO Catherine Papani says it's a women's business networking space.
Even though International Women's Day is finished and the official date of March the 8th, we've had to move ours a week out because of all the conflicting schedules and other International Women's Day celebrations. We've hosted this now for the 6th year annually, and it's a women's business networking space. And we kind of like invite out to all the businesses which have families, employers, employees, and the wider community. It's an invitation out, and it's a focus on business.
She said there are not a lot of events where women can come together in a safe space and celebrate being a woman.
This year the focus is on Inspire Inclusion, and the whole presentation, the whole evening is about that. So this year we've actually opened it up to a few of our male counterparts, and we hope they do turn up. But as you can see, there's not many events where a lot of women can come together in a safe space and actually celebrate just being a woman, feeling the challenges and sharing the challenges with each other, and also just having a really good time, just relaxing and making sure they have a good time. A lot of them are mothers. They've had to organise babysitters in order to come tonight.
Papani says it's all about the women having a good time and enjoying themselves. And since this year, Niue will be celebrating its 50th constitution, they decided to go with a yellow theme.
The women can expect a lot of participation from their part. It's like turning up to a workshop but in a different atmosphere. They will have group activities, table activities. There's a quiz game in between, and there's a presentation. So I'm hoping that they've listened to the presentation, because the quiz is based on the presentations.
Over 100 women and guests showed up on a night of reflection, group activities, laughter, good food, and music. And that's our news bulletin for tonight. Join us next Tuesday for our Wangahau Niue Bulletin. Until then, good evening.